Hello, my name is Jeff Rolka. I'm going to talk to you today about red light syndrome, among other things. If you don't know what red light syndrome is, just stick around. This is a video about vocal health in the studio, part of my new spiel regarding vocal health. And truthfully, this is just a great way of thinking about going into the recording studio. And I've got a lot of practical advice as well as some considerations to make sure that you manage the fatigue level that you are enduring while you're in the recording studio, the place where you're supposed to be giving your best, your all. We don't want to burn out too fast. Before I do that, thank you if you've chosen to subscribe. If you haven't yet, I hope that you'll choose to do so now. If you want a step-by-step method to work on your voice, head over to jeffrolka.com where you can find the AAA method. And as well, you can find ways to support this channel. Since YouTube has discontinued fan funding, you can throw a few cups of coffee my way via the donation page there. Now, red light syndrome is an old term that we used to use back in old school recording studios. You had the mixing console and the tape decks were going and all that kind of stuff. And when it was time, when it was magic time, there'd be a red light that would go on. Now, that you don't see that very much any longer. Though, if you look at your average digital audio workstation, DAW, usually, well, actually, in every instance that I can think of, when you arm a track to record, it flashes red. Now, being in the studio can be a place of great creativity. However, oftentimes we are under a time constraint because it can be very expensive to be in the studio. Even home studios can be very expensive. And so we want to make the most of that experience. And if you haven't guessed it yet, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure when it comes to the studio. And what I mean by that is that our level of preparation is going to enable us to make the most of this experience. So, in the months, years before you head into the recording studio, I wouldn't necessarily advocate waiting for years, but in the months preceding your sessions, make sure that you're taking good care of yourself. Practice your parts, deconstruct your songs, do your daily warm-ups, explore all of those things in that time period so that when you get to the studio, you are as prepared as you can possibly be to cut your vocal parts. That doesn't even really go into the warming up for the day of the studio. That's kind of a separate matter. But make sure that you've done your practice getting ready for your sessions. Now, when you get to the studio, and this may seem a little bit eccentric, but this wouldn't be the first time I've been accused of being eccentric. I'm going to suggest that you bring all the things that you are going to consume that day. So bring all the water that you want to drink, bring all the foods and snacks and little tiddly bits that you wish to have. Because, truthfully, it's all very practical. Studios like The Plant in Sausalito or Fantasy Studios over in Berkeley, California, places I've been very familiar with, they're in the middle of cities and towns, and yet getting food can be quite a to-do. It can take a lot of time. It can be distracting. It can waste a lot of time. They may or may not stop the clock for you. So that 45-minute excursion to go and get a bar of some kind or something like that is costing you not just for the bar, but all that studio time as well. Bring your foods and snacks. This also means that you're going to have the kinds of things that this speaks also to preparation, aren't going to mess with your voice. So I know that I can have things like salads and I can have things like yogurt and stuff like that. I'm going to bring all that with me because I know it's not going to affect my voice and it's going to keep me energized and keep the calories coming in so that I can keep on giving my best. Now, most studios will have bottled water on the premises for you, but I'm still going to suggest that you bring your own, and this is why. Sometimes they have municipally sourced bottled water that's been filtered and all that kind of stuff, but you won't necessarily know if you're going to get it hot or cold or room temperature, and we always want to have room temperature water for our voices. Sometimes, however, they have real fancy water like Avion. Now, I've picked Avion specifically because I can't drink Avion and then go sing. Avion is a mineral water. As far as I know, it's not terribly filtered or changed from what comes out of their spring over there. And it does not agree with my voice such that I can sing. Now, I can drink Avion just fine, and that's all well and good, but if I need to perform, I can't have that. Whatever little trace minerals are in there don't really jive with me. So I bring my own water, and I'm going to suggest that you do too. I want to suggest that you dress in layers. If you're cutting vocals, you will almost certainly be standing in an ISO booth. Now that is changing, and we're not necessarily always in ISO booths anymore. But if you are, the microphone that you will be standing in front of is incredibly sensitive. And what that means is that your engineer may or may not be able to turn on air conditioning or heating elements because the flow of air through the ducts will be picked up on the microphone. So there'll be limited periods of time where they might be able to turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off. That gets rather laborious, and it also wastes time and it wastes money. So dress in layers. If it's too hot, you can peel down a little bit. If it's too cold, you can layer up a little bit. Obviously, if it's extremely bad in one direction or another, ask your engineer to make a change so that you're as comfortable as you can possibly be. But dressing in layers will often take care of a nice zone of comfort so that you can get in the ISO booth and you don't have to worry about it, and you can do what you've come there to do. Be careful of the couch. Most studios have a lovely, luxurious couch, and it is very, very easy to sink into this couch. But that is not terribly good for our posture, and it's not terribly good for us to go from being in a highly energized state to being completely passive and allowing our bodies to get into that passive state. So plan your rests. Give yourself opportunities to rest in between takes or in between punches and sections and such as that. But don't succumb to the wiles of the couch. If you are a coffee drinker, be careful. Even if it's long before when you're going to cut your vocal, be careful of the coffee in studios. I worked in a recording studio for many years in San Francisco, and the brew that we used to make was extremely high octane. Now that's great for engineers and things like that, or people that are just having a coffee and hanging around, but it may be rather unfortunate to get involved in that high octane caffeine before you step into an ISO booth. If those things don't bother you, that's fine, but be aware of it. Again, preparation and awareness of what you are sensitive to and what you are not sensitive to is much more important necessarily than the specifics of what you choose to take with you. Some people will take yogurt and a milkshake. Some people will take a green salad, and a stick of celery. I don't know, just riffing right there, okay? But it's what works for you, and so that comes with observation and time, and that's what you're going to do in those practice periods before and coming towards your studio session. Most of us these days are recording on digital audio workstations. We sometimes might have an occasion to track to tape, and if you have that opportunity, I would highly encourage you to do so. But generally speaking, we're going to be using Pro Tools or Logic or Reaper or some other DAW. Most of, if not all of these systems have a looping feature where the engineer can highlight a section of music and you can loop it until you get it right. And I want to suggest that you avoid this at all costs. If you are not getting it for some reason, better to step back from it, take a look at it, and figure out why it's not working than to loop it infinitely until you get it. Because if you think about it, if you're only getting it 1 out of 10 times or 1 out of 20 times, well, 1, that should have really been addressed in your preparation. But 2, all you're doing is fatiguing yourself and reinforcing the bad habit. And furthermore, one of the things that we frequently succumb to in the studio is to doing something over and over and over again. And I want to give you the idea of the rule of 3, which is that try it 3 times. Try 3 punches, not loops, but punches. So you sing it, you stop, the engineer sets the punch again, and you sing it, and you stop. And if you don't get it in 3, then briefly move to another section and then come back to it. When we go over and over and over those patterns, we risk getting prematurely fatigued, and that can bring our sessions to a screeching halt or mean that everything that comes after that point isn't as good as it could be, and it defeats the whole purpose of being in the studio in the first place. As always, I hope this helps. If you have questions, please drop them in the comment section below or get in touch with me via Twitter. I do my best to respond, but I do sometimes miss them when they're in the comment section, so Twitter can be a bit more reliable in terms of asking questions. Thank you for watching. Take really good care of your voices, enjoy singing, and hopefully we'll see you again. Bye.